I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
Hey, Seattle, Shop the Beat is back. Shop the Beat supports the economic recovery of small businesses, local musicians, and neighborhoods throughout Seattle. This program matches small retail businesses with local musicians to host free in-store performances during peak shopping hours to help increase foot traffic and sales for retailers and provide competitive pay for musicians who were significantly impacted by the pandemic. The City of Seattle Office of Economic Development is currently accepting applications from musicians and small businesses who are interested in participating. Apply for Shop the Beat at seattle.gov/economic development. Applications end December 1st.
On Rainier Avenue Radio .world, look for the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show. I'm Dennis Weaver, your good food guide and host, helping you to feel good and look good, and who wouldn't want some of that? All that and more from the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show on Rainier Avenue Radio .world. Stories, songs, and guests. Begin living the organic good food life, and the rest of your life just may be the best of your life. Hose up, baby, to your health.
Wash your hands, don't touch your face, wipe things down, clean up your space. When you cough and sneeze, do responsibly. If you feel you're getting ill, isolate at home and chill. No, you're not alone. Please pick up your phone and call 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health 206-477-3977. King County 206-477-3977. Public Health Community Radio Station will provide you with more information. Say Rainier Avenue Radio. Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio .world. It's me, Tony D. I will be, the host for tonight. This is another debate that we're having on our radio station, part of our community election connection. You know, there's a little bit of echo. But we are here live at the Columbia City Theater, and great to be here again and share information with the community. The purpose of doing this is to make sure that you are a more informed and aware voter. The debate that we're hosting tonight is for Municipal Court District Position 7. In and off what they call presidential year, often people don't vote. And this is essentially when you should, because these are the things that directly impact and affect your community. What are a judge's role and responsibilities? The majority of Seattle Municipal Court judges' time are dedicated to jury trials and pretrial hearings. They also hear sentencings, arraignments, reviews, and you know what? They even perform marriage ceremonies. We have moderators for the debate that I'm very excited to have here. Our very own from Liveline Sports and does a number of different things, coaches. Used to do comedy, as a matter of fact, and it seems like about every time we have a judges debate on here, he's a great person to have on this panel because of his knowledge and his connection to the community and understanding of the nuances of our community. Mr. Randall Emerson, how you doing, Randall?
Doing good, Tony. Thanks for the invitation. Glad to be here.
Good to have you here. Randall will again be one of our moderators. Our moderators will be asking the questions. I'll go over the rules with you and how all of that works. And also, another great person to have in our community is the CEO, creator of Love Notes and Gravity Works. Has worked with a number of Fortune 500 companies in a number of different capacities. Again, just the kind of person, well, if you don't know exactly where to get what it is that you want, this individual knows where it is and how to get it.
Thank you, Tony.
And that's Jane Ford. Jane, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Well, we decided a little bit earlier who was going to go first. I'm going to get the rules for you. And just a second here. And I'm going to explain to everybody exactly what's going to be taking place here. So each candidate will get a 2-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to respond to the moderator's questions. If the moderators decide that they want further information, they can ask, and the candidates will be given an additional 30 seconds, each candidate. So there's always going to be the opportunity for both candidates to get equal time. Time permitting, each candidate will get the opportunity, and y'all should know this, to ask the opponent a concise question. So our candidates will have the opportunity to ask each other a question, time permitting as well, and then they'll be given 1 minute to respond. Those are basically the rules that we have. And again, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, this is for Municipal Court District Position 7. And we will start off with the 2 minutes. And I guess Judge Shadid, you will be going first, and you will have 2 minutes.
All right,
And I'm gonna go ahead and say, you're on.
All right. Thank you, everybody. My name is Judge Damon Shadid. I am the incumbent in Position 7 at Seattle Municipal Court. I've been there for 8 years. And my goal over the past 8 years is to find better ways of doing things in the criminal legal system. I came to the bench very much as a reformer, wanting to start alternative programs and expand existing alternative programs to help address the root causes of crime instead of doing the business as usual of putting people in jail and hoping things would get better. In the past 8 years, I feel I've delivered on those promises. 3 marquee projects that I've been working on. First, I resurrected and renewed a new community court. The community court had gone out of business because the partners couldn't work together. I spent 2 years bringing together the city attorney's office, the Department of Public Defense, and the judges around a new model of community court that has been very, very successful. In fact, we just got our first numbers. 80% of graduates from community court in the next 2 years do not have any new criminal law violations. This far exceeds typical conviction and jail time. We're doing much better. I've also expanded the mental health court. This is very important. Mental health court deals with much more serious crimes where people need much more serious treatment. And we have been able to triple the participation in mental health court over the past 4 years that I've been there. We've also started a consolidated calendar where people who are already working with case managers in the community can come to court 1 time a week with their case manager, and their case manager can advocate for them, tell us what they're doing, and get them a better deal in court. I've been endorsed by the Seattle Times and the Stranger and the Progressive Voters Guide. I've been told that that's pretty impressive to get those 3 entities to agree with each other, so I'm very proud of that, as well as many community leaders, 9 current and former Supreme Court justices, city council people, and my personal hero, Larry Gossett, among others. And I would appreciate your support. I'm a resident of Hillman City, right south of here, and so it's nice to be in the Columbia City Theater. Thank you.
Should have said I'll be making that announcement in 10 seconds. How much time we have left. And I will be referring to both of you from this point on as Ken.
Okay.
Candidate Nyjat Rose-Akins, You have 2 minutes, and you are now on.
Okay, thank you. So I am Nyjat Rose-Akins, and I'm running for position 7 on the Seattle Municipal Court. None of us are happy with how Seattle is right now. In fact, many of us are disappointed in the direction the city is going. I've heard a number of people talk about moving out of the city, and I'm not going to do that. Not me, not my family. We are here to stay, to help the city we love better. I've worked for the city of Seattle for 12 years, over 12 years. And in those 12 years, I have seen a breakdown in collaboration across the city. I am running because I want to restore that breakdown in collaboration. I want to repair the community's confidence in the court. And I want to return to an individualized approach to judicial decision-making. I'm not a politician. I decided to run because I know that I can make Seattle better. The court system cannot single-handedly solve all the issues affecting our communities, but it has to be a part of the recipe for building a better city, one that's anchored in honest and just courts working and partnering to help to keep our communities safe. I believe we can and we will be better and do better. The criminal justice system has just been in a silo for far too long. And I believe I am the candidate that will break it out of its silo so that it can better serve the victims, the defendants, and our community. And that is why I ask for your vote and your support. Thank you.
You still have 15 seconds left. Would you like to use it?
No, it's good.
Okay, the first question, Randall, will come from you. And initially, you'll direct that question to candidate Shadid. Again, both our candidates will have the opportunity to answer the same question. And so let's begin. Mr. Emerson.
Yes, candidate Shadid, you mentioned the success of community court. What exactly is community court? Who goes there? What differentiates it from regular court? And outside of the people that have completed whatever the program is, how has it helped? And is it a tool to reduce recidivism?
Well, thank you. I could talk all night about this, but I'll try to keep it down to 2 minutes. Community court is a collaborative project between the Department of Public Defense, the City Attorney's Office, and the judges. I was the judge who championed community court, who started it, who brought everybody together. And we started the court 2 years ago with the idea that we need to take a systems-wide approach to low-level crime, because the approach that we were taking, just giving people convictions, making them spend time in jail, was actually hurting the community. It was increasing recidivism. It was destabilizing people and making the community less safe. And so the three entities got together and we determined this is how we can do it better. Instead of trying to prosecute people, waiting for a discovery to get complete, and having this large amount of time between arrest and connection, we decided to shorten the time period to where people could get services the exact same day. The way we did that is that we did not make people give up their constitutional rights in order to receive services. And that's just common sense to us, but it is different than almost every other community court in the entire state, that you shouldn't have to give up rights in order to get services. So instead, people come in, they get an individualized plan that involves community service, connection to services, things like that. There are different levels to it. And then those people work the program. And if they work the program, their case is dismissed. Now, I've already mentioned 80% of our graduates, no new criminal law violations after 2 years. Very proud of those numbers. But it takes time to know whether or not these programs work. We meet every 2 weeks, all three entities, to make sure that the program is working, and we make adjustments as necessary. So we have broken down that silo to where we're all working separately, and instead we're working as a team together. I'd be glad to talk more about how we've reduced racial injustice in the system and bail reform in community court as well, but I don't have time.
Yes, please.
The question was, what is community court? and what does it do? How does it differentiate from regular court, and has it reduced recidivism?
So the point of community court is it's to be an alternative, a diversion court. Ultimately, it's lower level crimes are what is supposed to go into community court, but currently with the current Seattle Municipal Court model, approximately 22 types of misdemeanor cases go into community court. I would beg to differ that some of those crimes are not considered low level. For instance, criminal trespass in the first degree, as well as theft. Now, there can be some low level thefts. However, I've reviewed a number of community court cases and seen individuals who are stealing upwards to $1,000 from stores. In my opinion, that's not low level. In any event, if someone has a theft case in community court, what happens is that they are given 6 hours of community service. They have to do a social service contact, not even necessarily involve in services, but make a contact. So my issue with the current iteration of community court is that if these are the individuals we're saying need the most help and need the most assistance and need the most services, why then are we just having the case open for 14 days and all they have to do is make a contact, which is not really much of anything? Additionally, I've reviewed a number of cases where I've seen people in community court with 5, 6, 7 cases at one time. So I do not believe it reduces recidivism, because while individuals are currently in community court, they continue to commit crimes, but there is no accountability mechanism that this court holds individuals to. I believe we can be compassionate while still holding people accountable. There's a model of community court out of Auburn, King County District Court, which is an amazing model where they actually provide wraparound services and real support to those individuals to better help them. And that's the model I would like to have.
Ms. Forbes, next question. We'll start with you. And will you initially direct your question to candidate Rose-Akins?
Yes, thank you. With an understanding of the growing concerns that all municipalities are currently facing associated with unemployed youth, what are some of the solutions that you believe will reduce future crime rates?
Great question. So I definitely see that in the community. And I think initially, I currently work for the city attorney's office. So I know that there are a number of programs that the city attorney's office currently is involved with, like Choose 180 and other opportunities where cases don't necessarily go to the court, but are diverted immediately to these agencies so that they can better serve that community. And I think endeavors like that for youth specifically, Seattle Municipal Court doesn't necessarily engage with individuals under the age of 18 unless it's a traffic offense. So if it's a driving offense, someone the age of 16 could have a case in Seattle Municipal Court, but we are not a juvenile court. It's mainly going to be people 18 years and up. But I think overall connecting with specific agencies like the Urban League, I know that they have a lot of programs for young individuals. So I think we need to do a better job of connecting individuals with the proper resources that may be better able to help them from a cultural competency perspective. There are so many great social service providers in the central district in Seattle. And I think the court could better leverage our relationships with some of those entities instead of, we just need to better leverage and collaborate with a lot of those entities to try and funnel cases that don't need to be filed to those agencies so that they can work with individuals, and just doing a better job of propping up actual programs and job programs. I've been talking to people in the community where there's so many jobs out there. So let's really put together a system that can actually serve people and get people employed rather than just pretending to do something.
And I'd like to add to that just very quick.
1 second, we gotta go to our next candidate.
Sure.
Again, that's my role up here. I'm the time clock. So we'll give an opportunity for candidate Shadid to answer question repeated?
No, I think I got it. I agree with my opponent that we only deal with adults, quote unquote, in Seattle Municipal Court. But one of the things that I push for, and based upon the literature, is that really adults who are 18 to 25-year-olds should still be considered as juvenile. They don't have fully developed brains, and they have a lot more risk-taking behavior, a lot of more danger-seeking behavior. And so when you're dealing with 18 to 25-year-olds, especially children of color, you have to think about what is truly going to help that individual and what is going to help the community at large. And programs like Community Court and Mental Health Court, as well as excellent programs like Choose 180, try to address this specifically, because let me tell you what doesn't help you. What doesn't help you is being destabilized and separated from your community by being thrown in jail. What doesn't help you is getting criminal convictions, which are going to keep you from getting a job and housing. And what doesn't help you is being told that you're a bad person. None of those things are going to help an 18 to 25-year-old be successful in our community. And so the criminal legal system really needs to face that fact. And that's what I've been trying to do with different programs like Mental Health Court, Community Court, Consolidated Calendar, is make sure that 18 to 25-year-old kids, they're adults, are treated in a way that's going to help them succeed in the future. We also have a court resource center. Now, this is one of the most important parts of how we interact with the community, because the court resource center has 20 or more community providers inside the court. And not only 18 to 25-year-olds, but anybody, you don't even have to be charged with a crime, can come to our court resource center. They can get food, job training, Medicare. They can sign up, they can register to vote, they can get a library card, they can get a driver's license, they can do all of these things that are going to help them succeed. And that's really what we're about in our alternative courts.
And,
Thank you.
Ms. Brooks, if you had a follow-up question that you wanted to ask, you can ask both of our candidates. Will get a chance to respond to that if you have any.
Sure. Yes. My follow-up question was, which of the groups have you actively engaged with in any type of formal partnerships?
30 seconds, and initially, candidate Rose-Akins, that's on 30 seconds.
In formal partnerships. So
Formal collaborative partnerships with regard to addressing unemployed youth and prevention of increased crime within that demographic.
So the city attorney's office has worked with Choose 180 and Community Passageways. Specifically, we also have do LEAD, that's law enforcement diversion. So we also participate in that program, as well as I believe that's all that comes to mind right now.
Thank you.
I regularly engage with school-age children. They come to my court, and we have great mock trials. We work together. We've recently partnered with the YWCA. They're coordinating a lot of our service providers. I've been working with restorative justice programs around the city with individuals who want me to come to the court and talk about what we're doing with restorative justice. It's true that I'm not dealing in the court with minors, but I still like to educate minors as much as I can in the community.
Thank you.
Candidate, excuse me.
I'm not running. Not for office.
Next question is for you. Initially, this question will be directed towards Candidate Shadid.
Okay, Candidate Shadid, what are your views on the disparity related to Black and brown people in the criminal justice system? How does that affect your approach to the bench and the job as a whole?
Well, the criminal legal system, the criminal legal system is racist, and we all have to accept that. If you are a person of color, BIPOC, you are more likely to be arrested, charged, held in jail, on bail, convicted, and serve more jail time if you're a BIPOC person, and that is a fact. And any judge who tries to dodge that fact or act like it's not their problem individually is a judge who should not be on the bench. This has been the driving force of my advocacy before I became a judge, and of my advocacy after I become a judge. Community court, we specifically tried to address racial disparities. One of the things that we've done is in community court, it doesn't matter what your criminal history is in order to enter community court. And the reason for that is because we know BIPOC people are policed heavier, and we know BIPOC people are bound to have more criminal history. And so if you hold that against them and deny them services, you are simply playing into the institutional racial bias that is already present in the system. And so we stopped doing that. Another thing we did in community court is we said, if you are willing to engage with community court, you get an automatic release from jail. And the reason for that is it takes out the institutional bias that holds more BIPOC people in jail than others. I'm making real concrete efforts to address racial disparity in the criminal legal system. I'm passionate about not only facing my own racism, my own biases, but also to help train other judges about bias and to get people to move away from this idea that we should be a colorblind society and understand that we all come to the bench with biases, and we have to address that and think about it with every decision we make in the community. I'm good, thank you.
Same question to candidate Rose-Akins. Would you like the question?
Yes, please.
What are your views on the disparity related to Black and brown people in the criminal justice system? How does that affect your approach to the bench and the job as a whole?
So I'm originally from Jamaica. I moved here when I was 7. And when I went to law school, I initially thought I was going to do business. But I decided to go into criminal practice because I know that we need people of color on all sides. We need people of color everywhere. Because at the end of the day, when you're in a space where you're the only one, sometimes you have to be the one that always has to speak up on behalf of all Black and brown people. However, I think being othered as a Black and brown person is something that happens often. And it's something I think about daily and constantly. As I said, I'm a person of color. My husband's a person of color. And I think people of color don't want to be othered. They want to be treated fairly. They want to be treated equitably. And I think with more Black and brown people on the bench, we can get to that equality and equity. Black and brown people don't want to be othered. We want to feel as if we are contributing members of society and are able to do whatever we want to do and have the capacity to do whatever we want to do. And we need to make sure that we have Black attorneys and Black judges who can show our community that and show the youth that there are many options for us. So it's something I consider every day I'm on the bench, and that's why anytime when I'm pro-temping, everyone who comes into my courtroom is treated with dignity, respect, and compassion. And I think that's how you started. I've seen individuals coming into my courtroom and I see a sigh of relief because they know that I know that I'm going to treat them with dignity.
Mr. Emerson, do you have any follow-up?
In the role as a judge, how are you involved in the policy decisions and solutions related to that?
30 seconds in. Candidate Shadid, first.
You know, the great thing about working for Seattle Municipal Court is we're a court of 7 judges. All of us have a unique cultural background. I was proud to be the first Arab American ever elected to the bench in the state of Washington. And we bring those backgrounds onto the bench. But in Seattle Municipal Court, because we're 7 judges, we can make bigger changes than you can make statewide. And so that's why our programs have been so cutting edge when it comes to racial diversity, is because we are all so passionate about it.
So I'm not currently on the bench. I've just worked for the city for the last 12 years.
Okay, well, how would you?
So from a policy perspective, I think it's building programs through probation that are actually useful and of use to the individuals who are actually going through the system. I think that's how we started with education, with job programs, with housing. That's how it needs to start from a policy perspective to really help individuals who are committing lower level crimes.
Woo. All right. Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio World. It's me, Tony D. This is another in our series of debates as part of our community election connection. This opportunity to make sure that you can become a more informed voter. You know, running for office isn't easy. However, when you elect an official, you have the opportunity to make them accountable to vote for who you want to. Our moderators today, again, Mr. Van Wilson and Ms. Jane Forbes. We're going to take a short break, and we will be back, and we will continue this. Ms. Forbes, you will be up next with the next question, and we'll be back right after this.
Here with the Rainier Avenue Radio Traffic Update. You can listen to us in your car 24/7 anytime by downloading the free TuneIn app. Once you do, search Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio Traffic Update.
The Earshot Jazz Festival kicks off October 8th and spreads out over 10 Seattle stages through November 6th with concerts all around the city. All concerts live and in person, and many of them streamed directly to your home. Tickets and information available up online. Earshot.org. It's the Earshot Jazz Festival 2022. See you soon.
What's on your heart? Are you exhausted at the lack of progress for people of color in business, politics, and life? This is Cindy Bright, the host of Heartbeat Radio. Each week, we explore this heart condition in the country that is affecting you and me. We have real conversations about what's necessary for change. It's time to change this dialogue. Will you join this Heartbeat weekly, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio?
Hi, I'm Paul Pearson of StarTime. Did you know that back in the 9th century, Rainier Avenue Radio was the host of the first annual Gregorian chant-off? Man, that was tight. Well, times have changed and so have we. Now you can hear all the great Rainier Avenue radio shows on our mobile app for Android and iPhone. It's completely free on the Google Play Store and the iPhone App Store. The Rainier Avenue Radio app.
Mga kaibigan, ito po si Kuya Bert Kawili.
And this is Miles Salvador from Australia.
And I'm Norb Kawili, also known as Norbcam.
Kung gusto niyo po ang latest news and events from the Philippines at the local Filipino community, Phil Radio po.
We play Filipino music and interview guests from all around the world.
And I'll keep you updated on the latest Seahawks and sports news.
Kaya always tune in, Phil Radio, every Tuesday, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
And in YouTube and Facebook. Salamat po.
PrEP is a daily pill that can significantly reduce your chances of getting HIV. And typically, it takes a trip to a physician to get it. Now, you can visit select pharmacies, get tested on the spot, and walk away with your first month of PrEP. Plus, you'll also walk away with a $50 gift card after you complete your pharmacy visit. It's easier than ever to protect yourself from HIV. To find your nearest participating pharmacy, go to doh.wa.gov/PrEP now. From the Washington State Department of Health and Public Health, Seattle, and King County.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not shouting, "Badia" at city council meetings, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
World, it's me, Tony D. I'm just the host of this. This is another in a series of debates called Community Election Connection. This debate is for Municipal Court District Court Position 7. Our moderator, the candidates, are Judge Damon Shadid and also Nyjat Rose-Akins. Our moderators are Mr. Randall Emerson. For those of you who listen to the station on a regular basis, if that sounds familiar, yes, it is the same host of Midline Sports that you hear regularly here on Rainier Avenue Radio, and also Jane. Oh, I see you got the Daniel Sharp with that. Got it up there on the screen. And then also Jane Forbes. Thank you both for being here. Again, this is an important discussion to have. I talked a little bit about the roles judges play, and we appreciate both of you for being here, sharing information. You know, we've been talking off a little bit, you know, but you know what we do here on the Rainier Avenue Radio. We have almost open frank discussions. And so the issue, you know, was about explaining in a way that, you know, whatever. That's on our canvas. And, you know, there's also incumbent upon our moderators that ask questions and present the candidates with the opportunity to ask them. And if they choose to answer it the way they answer it, and they're not making a connection with the people, well, that's just the way it is. That's what I'll say about that. We're going to go back to our debate right now. We'll start off with Mrs. Forbes, and your question will initially be directed to candidate Rose-Akins. You can answer it however you feel.
Okay. Residents of the Seattle area and tourists alike have collectively witnessed a growing visible number of drug addicts and homeless people on the streets of Seattle. We are a community that has grown fearful of coming into some areas of the city based on these factors. And do you believe that the existing catch and release policies of no bail posting for misdemeanors has an impact on how Seattle police officers make decisions about arrests?
Candidate Rose-Akins, you have 2 minutes. You are now on the clock.
Okay. So this is one of the very issues and reasons why I decided to run in this race this year. I am one of the primary attorneys that advises the mayor's office and the city on encampments. So that is a big body of my work that I would say 40% of my time as a city attorney goes to that specifically. So I am very well aware of the issues citywide, and I get a lot of information from the community because I actually sit in one of the precincts and go to a lot of community meetings where I hear just what you've just stated, and it is concerning. And I think from a bail perspective, a judge, the presumption of release is the presumption of release, or releasing someone if they are arrested, is usually the first thing you look at. Should this person be released without having to post bail? That is the requirement. But then as a judge, you have to look at other things, meaning the impact to the community. How many cases does this person have in the sense of, violent offenses? Or is this person will likely reappear to court if a court date is set? So there are a bunch of different factors that the court has to look at. And I do believe that bail is not for everyone. However, I do believe that sometimes the court doesn't look to an individual's history, or doesn't look to see that an individual hasn't appeared in court without the court setting
10 seconds.
warrants or setting a bail. And I think that is a disservice to the community, because you have to weigh and balance everyone that comes before you, but you also have to look at the issues within the community as well.
Candidate Shadid, same question. Would you like the question repeated?
I want it, and I'm going to start at the end and then loop around here. Now, there's something that's very important to say right off the bat. All bail discriminates against poor people, period. So bail does not mean you're necessarily going to keep someone in jail. All it means is that you're going to keep someone in jail who can't afford to pay the bail. And there's a big difference there. And many bail reform systems have gone to hold or don't hold systems instead of the bail system, where if the person's dangerous or unlikely to appear, you just say you're not getting out. But that's not how it works in Washington, because bail is constitutional, and I'm not going to get into the weeds on that. Your original question, however, was about police not arresting. And this is an important issue, because I read police reports all the time. I mean, it's basically my job is to read police reports. And in those police reports, the police will say, I did not arrest the person because the King County Jail is currently not booking on these kinds of crimes. And so, yes, I mean, absolutely. And by the time we're able to send them a court date and get them into court, sometimes months have passed between the time the person was arrested and released and the time we're able to get them services. And this is a problem. You know, community court was originally built to be an arrest and connect court. People were supposed to be arrested so that we could get to them the same day, and then we would connect them with an individualized program. When the King County Jail stopped booking, it forced community court to pivot so that people were coming to us out of custody, which drove up the failure to appear rate like crazy. But this was us adapting to the fact that the jail was not booking anymore. But, you know, for all the bad that's happened with that, I do have to say that there are good things that came out of not booking in the jail either. It forced our community to look for alternatives and different ways of addressing people and took the emphasis off the jail. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
And time. Any follow-up, Ms. Balter?
Yes. With everything that we've just discussed in mind, how do you see your position in the municipal court impacting a reduction of drug abusers and homelessness issues that impact public safety, given the understanding that Seattle police officers somewhat have their hands tied?
Candidate Rose-Akins, 30 seconds.
So I've seen also, honestly, many individuals who are booked into jail who do get released immediately. So for my opponent to say that it's only that in the police report, it says that individual that they didn't book them. Yes, there are some, but there are also some who have been booked in on warrants and the court releases them yet again. So the large number of people in community court, I believe it is that population of individuals that I believe need more services and not just a 14-day case.
Candidate Shadid, 30 seconds.
I am going to need you to repeat that one.
Given an understanding of the challenges that the Seattle Police Department currently has, understanding that if they arrest drug abusers that are causing public safety issues, that they may just be released. Do you think that there is another solution that you can bring forward that can make our communities safer as a result of this mechanism not working?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, thank you for that question. First of all, let me be clear. Any violent crime, any person who's endangering the public through violent crime, they are arrestable. Many of them come to me through my mental health court. And in mental health court, what we do for those more dangerous types of people who are coming in, a lot of the times we do have to hold them in jail, pretrial, that's a fact. But a lot of the times we are also able to connect them with services on a very structured release program that involves electronic home monitoring, treatment, services.
And time.
Lots more to say.
Gordo, next question. Your question should initially be directed at candidate Shadid.
Okay. Initially directed at candidate Shadid, but I want a real debate on this question. Candidate Shadid has lauded his community court, his mental health court, and his court resource center. Has it really been effective? And go.
2 minutes.
Listen, the numbers don't lie. Okay, when you have a program that has resulted in 80% of graduates not having new criminal law violations in the next 2 years, that works. The numbers we are the oldest municipal mental health court in the nation. And the numbers are clear on that graduates of mental health court are doing wonderful. Okay, the plain fact of the matter is that connecting people with services is more effective at getting them out of the criminal legal system than putting them in jail and saddling them with convictions. But let me be clear about something. If someone's not willing to engage in these programs, if someone's not willing, if they're just saying, oh yeah, Judge, I'll do whatever you want in order to get out, and then they don't follow through, they are prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We lose nothing with our diversion programs except for the fact that we said, we're going to treat you like a human being, we're going to give you a shot, we're going to give you the services you need, and now you have to have the agency and the accountability to follow through with that. And I think that's a great thing. You know, jail does not solve problems. We have been trying to put people in jail, well, for all time. I mean, you can trace it back to England in the Middle Ages, putting people in dungeons. You know, this is not the way forward. The way forward is to have a functioning social safety net that the criminal legal system works hand in glove with to make sure that we are a conduit for helping people connect and getting them out of the system. And if you look at my numbers in my courts, you will see that our recidivism rates, meaning the number of people who commit new criminal law violations, is far below putting people in jail and settling them with convictions. They work.
10 seconds.
Your rebuttal?
10 seconds. Well, it's not a rebuttal. It's kind of the same question. So yeah, but you can read whatever you want to do with the question. You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
All right.
I got you.
Do you need it repeated?
I do not need it repeated.
Okay, then you have 2 minutes. You are now on the clock.
So my opponent says numbers don't lie. Numbers lie all the time. The Seattle Municipal Court, Community Court, currently is not working. I have reviewed multiple court calendars, and for instance, 27 people can be on the court calendar to be seen in court, and only 7 people show up. And the court then sends an order for the person to appear 2, 3, 4 times. And then finally, the court will maybe then issue a $25 bench warrant, which no one is going to be picked up on a $25 bench warrant. So there are individuals who are in community court that have 5, 6, 7 cases, and the only time they're going to actually be brought back into court is when they pick up another case. Those are the cases that I'm seeing on a daily basis in community court. It is not working. If someone has 5, 6, 7 cases and the court is only going to take 14 days of jurisdiction, meaning the case is only going to be open for 14 days, they have to do 6 hours of community service, which often gets waived. So there's no accountability for the individual if they say, oh, I don't want to do it or whatever have you. And then they may pick up another case. So my point is, individuals who have multiple cases should actually have proper services. 14 days is not enough time for anyone to meaningfully engage in any type of service. How is that really working and helping anyone? So the numbers are not accurate. The numbers are funny. It doesn't really count all the individuals that have been given community court offers, and it doesn't count all the cases I've been looking at
time
where individuals are not participating.
Well, I got it. Not unless Mr. Emerson.
My follow-up question is, what would you do differently, both candidates?
Okay, so you have 30 seconds, and you can use it however you'd like to.
So the most important thing about community court is we meet every 2 weeks with all of the partners, and we talk about the numbers, and we talk about what needs to change and what needs to stay the same. You know, my opponent, she says she's read dockets. Well, great. You know, that's one thing you can do. She's never been to the court. She's never been to a community court meeting. She's never participated in any way in community court, except for the prior iteration of community court, which fell apart because the prosecutors and the defense attorneys couldn't work together anymore.
5 seconds.
These programs work, and if my opponent is just going to say, I have alternative
And
facts to the
time.
real numbers,
And time.
that's a problem with the
And
candidate.
time. And candidate Akins Rose, you now have 30 seconds.
It's not alternative facts. I'm looking at what the court is doing. That's the best that's the best information, the public available information. That's what I'm reviewing. The model that happens in Auburn is far more beneficial for individuals. It's a one-stop shop where I went there and actually observed it because it's doing great. It's actually holding people accountable. They come to court weekly, depending on the
5
case,
seconds.
or 2 times a month, and people actually check in and try and see
And
what are you
time.
doing and how can we better serve you.
Mrs. Forbes.
Yes.
Next question. Your question will initially be directed towards candidate Akins Rose.
Thank you.
And again, I'm just going to ask our moderators to, just in the sake of time here, try and be concise with the questions. But great questions so far, and it's yeah, let's keep going.
With an understanding of how the city of Seattle is one of the first cities in the country to begin addressing the criminal justice centered around Johns versus prostitutes, what is your plan for addressing existing prostitution, human trafficking, and especially child human trafficking issues in our area?
Candidate Akins Rose, 30 seconds.
So just from a, I guess a process standpoint, the city attorney's office the city attorney's office is who brings the charges to the court. So the court can't necessarily advocate for the city attorney to do certain cases. I think that's out of our lane of that's out of our lane, I guess. But I guess speaking to human trafficking specifically, it is a big problem, and it is an issue that is currently affecting our communities. I was just driving on Aurora recently, and it is quite concerning, quite concerning. So I know there are a lot of different groups and entities that are really trying to work with that problem. However, I think from a policy standpoint, that the city needs to have a response for that. And when I say the city, I think the mayor's office, the police department, and the city attorney need to have an actual policy to determine how they plan to move forward with the growing issue of prostitution. I mean, Aurora has always been a problem, but over the last year or two, it has, I think, gotten a bit worse. So I think from a city perspective, we need a stronger policy as to how the Seattle Police Department, the city attorney's office, and how the mayor would like to actually do a better job of figuring out how the city's going to pursue those issues.
And still have 14 seconds left. Are you good?
Yeah.
All right, candidate Shadid, same question. You need the question repeated.
I don't. This is a great example of how institutional trauma can affect criminal behavior. When someone has been trafficked, when someone has been abused like that, a lot of the times they'll act out both with mental health issues, with risk-taking behaviors, things like that. Many, many, many prostitutes are victims of human trafficking and are victims of abuse in the past. And when they come into the court, you need to have judges who understand that kind of trauma. Now, the city attorney's office has basically stopped prosecuting prostitution. That is their choice. I take no comment on that. For a while, they only prosecuted Johns. Again, there was arguments for that and arguments against that. But our job in the court, especially Seattle Municipal Court, which is able to build programs, is to look at the root causes of crime. And so if somebody comes before you who has been a victim of human trafficking, it's very important to take that into account when you're trying to structure programs and proper responses to them. Now, I've spent my entire career working with immigrants and refugees. My job before I came onto the bench was representing non-citizen defendants in the criminal legal system to make sure they didn't get double punished. I started my career representing Somali women who had been ethnically cleansed, who had been come to the U.S. as refugees. I've worked for women's shelters in both Seattle and in the Houston area with women who have been subject to severe trauma in their relationships. And all that time, I try my hardest to understand where they're coming from and what can help them. And the way to do that is to ask them. The way to do that is to listen to them and to not think that
10 seconds.
Myself, with my upbringing, is going to understand the trauma that they've been through. And that's not just for women, that's for everyone who comes into my court.
Okay. Do you have a big follow-up question, or can we go to Mr. Emerson?
Do you feel there should be harsher penalties and more emphasis placed on criminal justice against those perpetrating against children?
That question initially goes to candidate Rose-Akins.
Absolutely.
30 seconds. That's all it took. Huh?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You have found common ground with me and my opponent. And the answer is absolutely. That is an aggravating factor that has to be taken into account when you are traumatizing someone who hasn't even really been able to start their life yet. That is a level of predatory behavior that has to be taken into account in any sentencing.
Mr. Emerson, next question, and please direct your question initially to candidate Shadid.
Candidate Shadid, the Supreme Court of Washington just ruled on exceptional sentencing. What is that, and how does that affect your court?
2 minutes.
It doesn't. In misdemeanor court, we are not subject to the sentencing guidelines, and that gives us both great power, but also great responsibility. And the reason for that is because the sentencing guidelines were originally put in place to address judicial bias and to make sure that one set of people weren't getting more harsher punishments than the other set of people. But in the misdemeanor land where we work, there is no limit. And so one judge can sentence every person who assaults someone to a year in jail, and another judge might not give them a conviction. It just depends. And so that's why a lot of people don't understand that in a lot of ways, misdemeanor judges have a lot more power when it comes to an individual. And even though these crimes are much lower level than felonies, let me give you an example. When I'm sentencing somebody, I don't have to have a nexus, meaning there doesn't have to be a connection between the crime and the sentencing. So if I think somebody has a drug problem, I can sentence them to substance use treatment, even if the crime itself did not involve substance use. That is different in felony land. Under the sentencing guidelines, there has to be a connection between the crime and the punishment. And so this gives me a lot more power to really look at how am I going to get this person out of the criminal legal system and how am I not going to? So, it is dangerous, but it is also very empowering. And I think judges need to be very careful to use that power in a responsible way.
All right. 18 seconds. You good? Yes. Candidate Rose-Akins, same question. Would you like the question repeated?
No, I agree with my opponent. That doesn't necessarily affect misdemeanor court. We are dealing with gross misdemeanors, which are crimes that an individual can serve up to 364 days in jail, or misdemeanor crimes, which means they can serve up to 90 days in jail. So I do believe that misdemeanor and district courts have great discretion to impose sentencing and other alternatives that they deem would best help that individual to not reoffend, which is why I'm specifically seeking to be a municipal court judge, because I do believe there's great discretion and you have so many different options and opportunities to really try and create a formula that's going to better serve each individual. So it's not necessarily a one-stop shop, but you can tailor make it for each individual that comes before you.
You have 5 seconds left. Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay. We're going to go to break right here. Let me make sure, Mr. Emerson, did you have any follow-up that you wanted to?
Yeah, I wanted to to follow that up with regarding individualized decision making. Can you expand on that and your role?
30 seconds initially.
Yes.
Initially, Judge Shadid, candidate Shadid in this circumstance.
Sure. You have to have both. You have to have judges who make individual decisions, but you also have to have programs and structures that help the judges get to the root cause of the problems. And so that's what my programs are trying to do. One of the things that my opponent has said that is incorrect is that there's no individual decision making in community court. That's not true. The only thing that's true is that the prosecution refers all of a certain kind of cases to community court, but then the judge makes an individualized attention about how to deal with that.
And 30 seconds, candidate Rose-Akins.
Individualized means that we need to focus on the individual before us. And I think that's lacking currently in what is happening in community court. It is not, my opponent just said that we're trying to get to the root cause. But again, how can we get to the root cause of anything in 14 days? Sometimes you can't even really engage in services in 14 days. So that's what I'm talking about, making sure that we know why people are behaving the way they are and actually trying to serve them.
We're going to take a break here. We're going to come back and when we come back for this final section, each candidate will only have 1 minute to answer questions so that we can get more questions in. These are, again, you're listening to the Community Election Connection right here on Rainier Avenue Radio World. It's me, your host, Tony B. Our candidates for Municipal District Court Position 7, Judge Damon Shadid and Nyjat Rose-Akins. Our moderators, Mr. Granville Emerson and Mrs. Jane Peralta. We will be back in a couple minutes. When we come back, candidates, you both have the opportunity to ask a question of your other candidate. You can decline and not do that if you don't want to, but if you'd like to, and because candidate Shadid, you'll be going first, I will be asking you first if you have a question for candidate Rose-Akins, and then Rose-Akins you will have next, or if he chooses not to, you choose to just ask your question. Either way it goes, I know you don't want to miss this when we come back. Are you hearing what you want to hear? Are you getting the answers that you want to hear? Is this an opportunity for you to find out what you need to know? That's why we're here at the end of the day. We'll be back in a couple minutes right here on Rainier Avenue Radio World. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Has your small business experienced property damage? Apply for the Storefront Repair Fund to receive a $2,000 grant to help cover storefront repair costs. The Seattle Office of Economic Development is investing nearly $2 million to help businesses recover from the economic impacts caused by damages to their storefronts. Grants will help cover costs such as broken windows, broken doors, broken locks, and etching on windows. Applications will remain open until all funding is awarded. Application assistance is available in multiple languages at 206-684-8090. For more information and to apply for the Storefront Repair Fund, go to seattle.gov/economic development.
Tune in to Real Estate and Money every Tuesday afternoon from 2:30 to 3 here on Rainier Avenue Radio World. Join your hosts Violetta Strash with John L. Scott Kent North and Tina Lombard with Guaranteed Rate Affinity. They'll help you navigate the waters of our volatile real estate market and offer you some guidance on how to make your hard-earned money work to make your dreams come true. Learn about current trends, get tips on financial matters, and have fun, interactive discussions about your home inside and out. That's Real Estate and Money.
What's going on, world? It's your boy OG Mambo
and your guy D Money. Join us along with Pint Size Patron and ID Yourself
here on Fresh Juice at Rainier Avenue Radio
every Wednesday hump day from 9 to 11 Pacific.
Get exclusive interviews from your favorite artists, all the hottest music, and updates on what we got going on in the world.
That's every Wednesday, 9 to 11 p.m. on Seattle's Rainier Avenue Radio.
PrEP is a daily pill that can significantly reduce your chances of getting HIV. And typically, it takes a trip to a physician to get it. Now, you can visit select pharmacies, get tested on the spot, and walk away with your first month of PrEP. Plus, you'll also walk away with a $50 gift card after you complete your pharmacy visit. It's easier than ever to protect yourself from HIV. To find your nearest participating pharmacy, go to doh.wa.gov/PrEP now. From the Washington State Department of Health and Public Health, Seattle, and King County.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenue radio.world. Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, your host, Tony B. You know, I'm getting that weird echo again. Anyway, we are here live at the Columbia City Theater, our new home. This is part of our Community Election Connection. We are hosting another debate, this one for Municipal Court District Position 7. And some of you may be saying, I don't know what that is, and I don't know who I'm going to cast my vote for. I don't know the name, this name sounds to me that there's a better way to do this. And that's why we're hosting a debate today, so that you can hear from the candidates. I thank both of them for being here and being accountable to our community. I thank our moderators for the questions. These questions are put together to help you. They're designed to give you information that works for you. And at the end of the day, that's what you do with your vote. You get to make your vote count. Now, there's other things you can do too when you listen to this. You can say, and you can talk to your friends, and you can go back and say, you know what? I just listened to a debate on Rainier Avenue Radio for Municipal Court District 7. I think that you need to do that and get other folks to listen. You can all get together and say, we all agree, and you can put your votes together and have a collective vote and have more power. There's a number of different ways to do this. At the end of the day, what I want to do is make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be more informed about their vote. And I thank both of our candidates for being here. Right now, I would like to give our candidates an opportunity. We've had an hour's worth of discussion here, and we're going down there to the end of this, and I would like to give each of our candidates an opportunity to ask a question of the other candidate. The candidate will get 1 minute to respond and then ask a question of the other candidates. And so, Candidate Shadid, would you like to take the opportunity to ask a question of Candidate Rose-Akins?
Sure. A statement followed up by a question, and that is, I'd like to thank my opponent for running against me. I think this has been a really important time, and she's brought up really important questions, and I've really enjoyed going out into the public and getting to know people and to feel the support that I felt in the community. But I also appreciate the fact that she's run a really good campaign. So my question for my opponent is this. What's your favorite restaurant in Seattle?
What? Ooh. I just started going outside when I decided to run in the sense of restaurants and whatnot. And I love food. I do love food. So my favorite restaurant, so many restaurants have closed during these last few years. So this is actually making me sad because I'm thinking of restaurants. But okay, I'm going to have to say, given that I'm from Jamaica, my favorite restaurant right now is Taste of the Caribbean, because that's a taste of home. I can go there and get my rice and peas and my oxtail, and it's owned by a Jamaican, so I know they're going to do it right. So Taste of the Caribbean, that's my favorite. And now I'm going to give you a question like that.
Candidate Rose-Akins, you have the opportunity to ask a question of Candidate Shadid. Would you like to take that opportunity?
Yes.
Okay.
Judge Shadid, when you are not on the bench, what do you like to do outside of your family and kids? What is your favorite pastime activity?
1 minute.
Well, we already hit on it earlier tonight. I love playing ping pong. I absolutely enjoy it. But my favorite thing in the whole world is backcountry hiking. That's why I moved to the Pacific Northwest in the first place. It's just, I have gone all over the state. I've been backcountry, dozens of times, and I still keep finding new places to go. So, Seattle is just amazing for all outdoor activities.
Okay, we're going to return to our moderators now. Now, I can tell you the last time we had a debate, it did not go down like that. Again, thank you for listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We now know Taste of Soul. Is it Taste of
the Caribbean.
Weeks? Okay, so shameless plug for.
I know. Island Soul is right down the street.
Taste of the Caribbean. We'll give them a shameless plug, and then I mentioned earlier that here at Rainier Avenue Radio we were going to put a ping pong table in here, and I see you're serious now about ping pong. Okay, well, when we get back to our debate here, I would again like to tell our moderators each candidate will only get 1 minute to answer your questions. And so once again, I'll say, please be concise with your questions. If you have to use context, go ahead and use context. But this is it. This is the last opportunity folks are going to have to hear from our candidates. So let's make sure we get as many questions in as possible. Ms. Forbes, your question will initially be directed towards candidate Rose-Akins.
In the city of Seattle, the criminal histories of rental applicants are virtually off limits under the new laws. What is your message to landlords in support of their rights and public safety? And in your opinion, do you believe that landlords deserve more rights centered around screening rental applicants?
Candidate Rose-Akins, 1 minute.
So Seattle Municipal Court doesn't deal with evictions. That's happens at King County, and so Municipal Court, I would never have to adjudicate over a landlord-tenant issue. However, I used to but I did pro bono work for the loan foreclosure clinic, so I understand some of the dynamics with landlord tenant issues, and I think it's fair. Someone's criminal history may not have anything to do with their ability to pay their rent, so I think it makes sense that we no longer necessarily require that. However, I think the rule is really about leveling the playing field and making sure that individuals still have an ability to get housing.
And time. Candidate Shadid, would you like the question repeated?
No, it's okay. My response to this is really complex. I come from a family who has had rental properties. I've had rental properties myself. I rented out a residential duplex, but I also have worked on the other side. Back when Mayor Hlara was a council member, he was doing the ban the box, and I worked with him on that. And you always have to balance the governmental interest versus the private property owner's rights, and that's a difficult thing to do. But let me just say this: back in the civil rights era, the Supreme Court in the 50s would not touch private institutions like hotels and restaurants. They used to say it's a private business. You can discriminate against Black people, brown people, all you want, and we're not going to do a thing about it. And then they had a series of laws that came along. It was called substantive due process. That's getting into the weeds. But basically, the Supreme Court came along and said, you are a public-facing entity, and you need to be responsible to your community. I think the same thing goes with landlords, and I think that we have to look at that in that context.
Mr. Emerson, your question should initially be directed towards candidate Shadid.
Okay, candidate Shadid, what cases in municipal court would you like to see the greatest reduction in cases, and how would you help that reduction happen?
1 minute.
Well, the biggest that I'd like to see is a decrease in DUI and domestic violence. These are the most serious cases that come through our court, and they are the most dangerous cases. We have made strides in the DV world and in the DUI world as well. But I think that the DUIs, we are fundamentally missing the point with a lot of DUIs and the treatment that we're giving people. we're treating driving while under the influence as a addiction problem instead of as a problem of making a bad choice to drive after you've been using. And I think we need better programs to help people make better decisions to not drive after they drink. So that's what I'd like to see as a reduction in DUIs.
18 seconds. You good? Oh, you good?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I was trying to hurry.
Okay. Candidate Rose-Akins, would you like the question repeated?
No. I would say mental health court cases. It is unfortunate that our mental health system is just inadequate. And I think there are a number of cases going through the mental health court, and there's a gap of individuals where maybe the individual is maybe found incompetent and that case gets dismissed. But then that individual, because there's not enough beds at Western State and all the issues with mental health in the sense of funding, that individual after a few days may be right back out on the street. So I would like to see a decrease in that, because I'm thinking of all the different programs and entities that outside of the court that we can better leverage to really be
10
a
seconds.
stopgap for some individuals who, instead of cycling them right back out onto the street, maybe we can get them into like transitional resources or housing or something to try and help them.
Ms. Forbes, next question, and your question should initially be directed towards candidate Rose-Akins.
When rapid gerrymandering occurs, diverse communities always run the risk of losing their voice and having balanced political representation. Do you have concerns about the Seattle Redistricting Commission and how decisions are being made currently?
1 minute.
So as a judicial candidate, sometimes you cannot necessarily speak on certain issues, and I'm trying to make sure I understand the question. So is the question about representation, and if, can you repeat the question one more time, please?
The question is directed toward the concerns. What are the concerns that you might have around Seattle redistricting, the redistricting of Seattle, and how that may negatively impact diverse communities?
Okay. So I guess I'll put it this way. Seattle, this is the first place I've ever voted. I became a U.S. citizen here, and I know the immigrant population here is quite large, and they definitely mobilize and really try and get themselves educated as to what's happening within their communities. I think because Seattle is so diverse, we know that maybe more BIPOC people are in the South and the Central District area. And I do feel as if there is good representation for those communities in that area. So I'm not sure if I believe the redistricting has necessarily negatively affected the communities
10
right
seconds. Okay. And candidate Shadid, same question. Would you like the question repeated?
No, and I mean, I apologize in advance. I really can't comment on pending legislation or pending redistricting. But let me just say this. At some point in America, we have to decide whether or not we live in a democracy. And in a democracy, everybody should have an equal voice. And when you create plans that specifically cut minority voices out of the conversation, that's always going to be a problem with democracy. So I watch this as a citizen with great concern, but I will not be making a public statement on it.
Thank you.
And, if you'd like to learn more about redistricting, we did an entire panel discussion on redistricting and the issues that may be impacted. We had maps that were drawn. There are groups out here that brought maps and would like to have the district done. Now, this only happens every 10 years. And so if there are too many people in one area, then they have to draw lines in another area. There are essentially 5 commissioners who do this. 2 were appointed by our previous
mayor. 2 were appointed by our previous city council, and then they chose another, former Mayor Greg Nichols. So those 5 commissioners pretty much have autonomy to do what they want to do. There are questions from various communities who say, hey, we don't want this to happen. And by the same token, there are communities who say, we want this district to be part of our community because more people of our race, ethnicity live in this district, which gives them leverage for voting power. So just since we were talking about redistricting, I thought that I'd explain that to you, since our judges are really unable to talk about that. But that's a critical issue. And for those of you who are watching, it's on our screen now. We specifically talked about the redistricting in 2 and 3 and where those lines may be drawn and how that can affect your community. So go back and take a look at those. It's critically important. If you don't comment, if you don't have commentary, if you don't share that information with the commissioners who are doing that, then you may end up in a different district and you may not be happy about the outcome of that. So anyway, that's redistricting. Took up too much time to do that. No, I didn't. It was a good conversation.
Can I just mention?
Now, if you talk, I'm gonna have to have both of you talk.
Fine.
Okay, so I'll give you 30 seconds.
I just wanted to mention that this Seattle Municipal Court race, we are not subject to districts. All Seattle Municipal Court races are citywide. So everybody who's listening can vote in this election. There are 7 of us, but we're not districted in the same way that the city council is districted. So I just wanted to make sure the voters knew.
Thank you for that clarification.
And candidate Rosa, you have 30 seconds if you'd like to use it.
I agree.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Emerson.
I don't know if this is a viable question, but I'm going to ask it.
Initially directed towards Candidate Shadid.
Candidate Shadid. I recently went to municipal court for the first time in like 40 years on a small claims case that I won. Could there, should there be a way for the court to enforce the loser to pay?
Yes, and there is, and I mean, you were at district court. I'll just point out, and on 3rd and James, we're in municipal court up on 5th.
Okay.
So we don't do small claims. We could do small claims, but the court decided a long time ago that district court did it better. But as a pro tem judge, I was a pro tem judge for years before I became a judge, and small claims were my favorite thing because you get to do the people's court. I always loved Judge Wapner growing up. But there needs to be easier and more effective ways for people to address those judgments, because right now you practically have to hire a lawyer and go through a whole expensive thing, and that's not what small claims was supposed to be about. And so there should be easier ways to maybe garnish or to attach to make sure that you get paid when you win a judgment.
You have 10 more seconds. Are you good?
I'm done. Thank
All right. Candidate Rose-Akins, would you like the question repeated?
No, I agree with my opponent. I think access to the court is very difficult. I've, talked many people through trying to get an anti-harassment order, going through small claims court, and how to, if they win, how do they get a judgment issued? And it is quite complex. So I think, and because a lot of individuals who may be representing themselves may not necessarily have the funds to hire an attorney. So I think those type of services would be great to add in the court, to say, okay, maybe there's another entity that can allow and assist people to then formalize their judgments and actually get it filed and all of those things. So I do think that could be a function of the court to assist, especially low-income individuals who are
10 seconds
doing those claims because maybe someone isn't paying them and all those sorts of things. So I think that could be a function that would make access to justice in the court far better.
And time. Ms. Forbes, you will be asking the last question of this debate. Go ahead.
Are you actively involved?
I'm sorry, your question should initially be directed towards candidate Rose-Akins.
Yes, thank you. Are you actively involved in any sort of advocacy or mentorship programs for youth that have an interest in participating in the legal profession? And if so, what is your message to youth that want to be part of a future of solutions?
Candidate
Rose-Akins?
Yes, great question. So I am a member of the first Black sorority, which is called Alpha Kappa Alpha. And our main tenets are fostering relationships for young women and girls in education. I'm also the treasurer on it's called Dynamic Urban Opportunities Foundation. So raising money, a foundation for raising money to provide scholarships for young girls graduating from high school so that they can go to college. So that's something that I really find lots of value in, because I think education is very, very important. And especially as a young woman of color, I think that is the key.
10 seconds.
Education. And that's why I think it's important to put my time behind raising funds to ensure that individuals, especially young Black women, can go to college.
Time. Candidate Shadid, would you like the question repeated?
No, it's fine. I've mentioned already that I love talking with school-age children about the criminal legal system. And I do it on a regular basis, both going to the schools and having the schools come to the courtroom, practicing mock trials, demystifying it, and really just giving the kids a good time. But my more passionate mentoring happens with young attorneys, trying to bring them up into the criminal legal system, into judgeships. I have done continuing educations at the Judicial Institute, as well as many other training pro tems, things like that, trying to get more judges of color, more public defenders, more people who don't usually go the judicial route to get interested in judgeships. And I am proud to say that there are at least 2 judges on the bench right now who were previously my
10
mentees,
seconds.
so I'm very proud of that.
Beautiful.
Okay.
And did they have a message?
Hold on a second. We're going to go to closing statements. We're almost at time here. First of all, thank you to our moderators. I'll do that again. Thank you to our candidates. What I'm doing right now is I'm giving you time to think about what you want to say. To our listeners, if you have your voter's guide in front of you, or you're thinking right now, and I think the ballots even went out, this is an opportunity for you to make a decision. Did you hear information from these candidates that moved you in one direction or another? Did the responses make you feel like this is the candidate that I'm looking for? Well, we are going to give our candidates now an opportunity to. Damon, can you make sure to cut the. Thank you. We are going to give an opportunity for our candidates here to have final words. And this might be it. This may be the thing that moves you. I say that for our candidates. Thank you for being here. But this is your closing statement now to our community. Candidate Shadid, you are going to be the first. And so I'm going to put you on the clock here, and you will have 2 minutes for a closing statement to our community about why their vote should go to you. You are now on the clock.
My name is Judge Damon Shadid. I'm the incumbent, 8 years on the Seattle Municipal Court bench, and this is what I pledged when I came to the bench, that I would never stop working to make the criminal legal system more effective, more responsive, to make the community safer, but also to help get people out of the criminal legal system. I've diligently worked for 8 years to put myself out of a job. I would very much like to see crime completely eliminated in Seattle. My programs are working. They take time. They're not perfect. They need to change periodically with the facts and with the information that comes in. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I don't go on philosophy. I don't say this is the way it ought to be and I'm going to keep going forward no matter what. No. I work with our criminal legal system partners and I try to find better ways of doing things. And if the numbers aren't in my favor, I will change these programs. But it is not just about calling balls and strikes when you're a judge. It is about actually doing system reforms. It is about making our community better and safer and more responsive to the people coming through it. And that is what I am trying to do. That is what I will continue to do, either on the bench or off the bench. I would very much appreciate your support. Thank you.
You still have 45 seconds left.
All right, I'll mention I do have a lot of endorsements, including 9 current and former Supreme Court justices, the Stranger newspaper, the Seattle Times newspaper, Publicola, the Progressive Voters Guide. I'd invite you to go to my website at judgeshadidforseattle.org and take a look. You can see my programs there, and you can also see my endorsements. You can see testimonials from lawyers who have practiced in front of me. And you can just see the breadth of the diversity in Seattle that has come behind my campaign and has been supporting
10 seconds.
And lastly, I would like to thank my opponent for running a good campaign.
Okay. Candidate Rose-Akins, same thing. You have 2 minutes here to share with our audience why they should vote for you. And you are now on the clock.
Thank you. Again, my name is Nyjat Rose-Akins, and I'm running for position 7 on the Seattle Municipal Court bench. I became a U.S. citizen here in Seattle, and Seattle is very important to me. I am not a politician, and I did not jump into this race lightly, but I've worked for the city for the last 12 years, and I have just seen the breakdown in collaboration across the city. I've spent the last 12 years speaking to victims of crime and managing the community's relationship with law enforcement. And I have seen that the Seattle Municipal Court can do better. We have all the criminal cases that happen within Seattle go to Seattle Municipal Court. And for a city that is so resource rich, I find that our programs are resource lacking. If individuals are committing crimes and we are saying those are the individuals we need to service as a community, as a city, as a court, then we need to do that and not just provide lip service to it, but provide services, provide jobs, provide housing. If we are saying these are the individuals that need the most of our support. And that is what I believe has been lacking over the last number of years. When I started at the city in 2010, I started in community court. And it was a court that led with compassion, but also led with accountability. We can do both. We can be compassionate and hold people accountable. Something that resonated with me, and it's been over 12 years since I heard this individual
10 seconds.
in community court, and he was getting his certificate, and he said, "This is the first time I've ever completed anything." So he was held accountable, but he appreciated it and was willing to do what he needed to do.
That's it. This debate is now concluded. First of all, there's only just a couple people. We're live at the Columbia City Theater, in this big theater. There's just a couple of us here, but the couple of us that are here, I think let's give a big round of applause to our moderators. Great. Great job. We appreciate you, Mr. Gavin Emerson, Shane Plug. You catch him every Monday right here on Rainier Avenue Radio, 7 o'clock. Lidline Sports, along with Renault, Pepe, Bean, and Leroy. I know there's been some conversation about Russell Wilson, but you know what? You got to watch the show to see where these guys have went with that. But the show is entertaining, informational, and I know I'm biased, but your best sports show that you can find right now around the topics that they discuss on the show, and also Mrs. Jane Forbes. Thank you, Jane, for being here. Appreciate everything that you do in the community. Love Notes.world. Is it?
Love Notes.world and Gravity Work.
Gravity.work. And Gravity.work. Make sure and go to the website and check out some of the wonderful work that Jane, in addition to the work that you're doing with Rainier Avenue Radio.
My favorite.
Really appreciate that. Which gets me to a shameless plug I have to put in here again. Rainier Avenue Radio will be broadcasting live at 6:30 from Town Hall as part of our presentation of Earshot Jazz shows that happens, month-long thing, shows all over the city. Earshot Jazz, check it out. Great musicians, great music in small venues all over the city. We're also going to be doing interviews, but we'll be, prior to Alex Dugdale's performance, we'll be in the lobby and looking forward to meeting a lot of our listeners, our jazz listeners from that particular show. On Thursday night, we will have another debate here, it is the 37th Legislative District debate with Amijah Smith and Chapalo Street. That will be happening right here again, 6 to 7:30. It's going to go down again. So make sure and tune in for that as well. Daniel, do we know yet who the opponent is for Garfield? We don't know yet. So we covered high school football, and in the playoff series, Garfield will play either Franklin or Ingram. Who's the other team, Daniel? Franklin, Ingram. What's the other team? Lincoln. Oh, Franklin, Ingram, or Lincoln. It's a weird thing. And then they'll play on Saturday, and we'll be covering that game for you. And we'll be covering high school football all the way through the championships, the WIAA championships that will take place this year. So as your community radio station, that's what we do. That's what we get done. That's how we get done. And I saved our candidates essentially last but not least. It's tough to run for office, and these are people who are committed to running for office, representing you. You're the electors, and so I just thank the both of you for doing what you do and doing this course, and I wouldn't do it, you know. But I'm glad that people do. So thank both of you. Listeners, you had an opportunity to hear from our candidates. Now you've got the pen and the ballot, and you have an opportunity to pull that ballot out right now. Yeah, I'm saying do it. You know, you've heard the debate, and you can mark down which one of these candidates you think you would most feel represent you and your entrance for municipal court position 7. The incumbent, Judge Damon Shadid, and working with the city attorney's office, did I get that right? Nyjat Rose-Akins. So that's it. That's what this is all about. It's me, Tony B, for Rainier Avenue Radio .world, and on behalf of everyone who's involved in putting this together, thank you. That's all the time we have. That's going to do it for the kid. It's me, Tony B, saying, remember, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are probably right. I'm out. Peace.